All right, and we have our last astrological essay for the class, the fourth one, the Saturnine Principle. Moving beyond simplistic notions of malefic influence, construct a philosophical defense of Saturn as the necessary author of meaning in the human life. How does limitation, structure, and delay create the conditions for significance and achievement? The Saturnine Principle, an apologia for the architect of meaning. It is the peculiar fate of Saturn, the great malefic of ancient tradition, to be the most misunderstood and maligned of celestial bodies. The popular astrological consciousness and its relentless pursuit of comfort and affirmation recoils from its stark geometry, seeing in its rings only shackles, in its slow passage only delay and denial. To perceive Saturn merely as a cosmic taskmaster, a purveyor of misfortune and obstruction, is to mistake the sculptor's chisel for an instrument of torture. This essay will construct a philosophical defense of the Saturnine Principle, arguing that it is not the antagonist of human happiness, but the necessary author of all meaning, significant, and enduring achievement. It is through the imposition of limit, structure, and consequence that the raw material of life is sculpted into a form of substance and value. The fundamental error in the appraisal of Saturn lies in the failure to distinguish between pleasure and meaning. Jupiter, Saturn's celestial counterpart, expands, affirms, and seeks the joy of a possibility. Jupiterian energy is the breath of inspiration, the lucky break, the philosophical vista. It is undeniably a source of pleasure, but pleasure is ephemeral, and in excess breeds a hollow ennui. Meaning, by contrast, is forged in the crucible of effort, discipline, and accepted limitation, the very domain of Saturn. As the existential philosophers of our century have grimly noted, it is the awareness of our finitude, our mortality, the ultimate Saturnine condition that lends any of our actions their poignant significance. A game with no rules is not liberating, it is meaningless. Saturn provides the rules, the boundaries of the playing field, and the clock that counts down the quarters. It is this very framework that makes the game worth playing. Saturn's primary function is that of the architect. Before a vision can be inhabited, it must be given form. Before philosophy can be lived, it must be structured into an ethic. Saturn, as the ruler of Capricorn in the 10th house, is the principle of manifestation in time and matter. It takes the nebulous inspiration of Jupiter, the raw passion of Mars, the fleeting insight of Mercury, and says, yes, but how? By what method? With what materials? Under what authority? It is the question that demands an answer, and the ideal that demands a plan. The artist, a Venetian or Neptunian impulse, may have a sublime vision, but it is the Saturnine discipline of daily practice, technical mastery, and confronting the limitations of their medium that transforms that vision into a lasting masterpiece. The masterpiece is not the vision alone, it is the vision made concrete through Saturnine labor. This architectonic function extends to the very structure of the self. The personality without Saturn will be a formless, chaotic soup of impulses and potentials. The ego itself is a Saturnine construct, a necessary boundary that defines the self in relation to the non-self. The trials and frustrations associated with Saturn transits are not punitive attacks, but the process by which an outgrown or poorly constructed identity is broken down so that a more resilient, authentic, and capable structure can be erected in its place. The Saturn return at approximately age 29 is not a curse, but a mandatory graduation from the provisional adulthood of one's 20s into a more responsible and authentically constituted self. The pain is not the purpose, the restructuring is. Mythology provides two potent images for Saturn. The Greeks knew him as Kronos, the god who castrated his father, Uranus, sky, to end his smothering embrace of Gaia, earth. This is Saturn's first brutal act, to impose a necessary separation, to create space for individual existence by severing the endless, undifferentiated potential of the sky. He later devours his own children, a harrowing symbol of how time, Kronos, consumes all things. Yet the Romans worship him as Saturn, the god of a lost golden age, a time of perfect social order and agricultural abundance. This duality is essential. Saturn is both the devourer and the king of a golden era. He destroys the unmanifest potential, the children, to bring about a tangible, structured reality, the kingdom. The golden age is not one of effortless Jupiterian bounty, but one of perfect, harmonious structure, where every element has its place and function. To live in conscious alignment with Saturn is to embrace what the psychologist Otto Rank called the life fear, the fear of not fulfilling one's potential, and the death fear, the acceptance of one's limits. It is to understand that our most profound achievements are not merely expressions of our talent, but are victories wrested from our inherent limitations. The writer who stares at a blank page is facing the Saturnine void. The sentence she eventually writes is a Saturnine creation, imposing order on chaos. The law, societal structure, tradition, and history are all Saturn's domains, the accumulated, hard-won structures that, for all their flaws, save us from a Hobbesian state of nature which is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. In conclusion, to vilify Saturn is to vilify the very principle of reality itself. It is the weight that gives a pendulum its swing, the banks that give a river its direction and power, the sonnet's form that gives the poet's words their enduring resonance. Saturn does not deny us joy. It denies us the cheap thrill that evaporates upon contact with reality, offering in its stead the profound satisfaction of the thing well made, the obstacle overcome, the duty honorably discharged. It is the stern but ultimately benevolent architect who transforms the blueprint of the soul into a habitable, significant, and enduring life. In the final analysis, Saturn is not the enemy of life, but the condition for its meaningful expression.